Washington's clear-thinking headquarters. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAM.
8:37, Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Michael Steele, former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, RNC Chairman, and Major Garrett's from National Journal in the House.
Here. The Major.
The Major. Before we get to Major, let me just, let's go back in the Wayback Machine, the time machine. And here's what Major said early Friday morning.
I think all the choreography suggests that sometime today, possibly into this evening, something that would be fairly characterized as the 11th hour, all interested parties are going to rescue the nation from the dramatic perils of a government shutdown and pat each other on the back and say what tough and aggressive and high-minded negotiators they were, and that not everyone got what they want, and nothing happens that way in federal government, but it was a good and durable and decent compromise, and will avert a government shutdown.
Okay, did you have Charles Schwartzler in the master?
I did not. I wish I did.
So it happened exactly the way you predicted it. Congratulations to you. So I guess you weren't surprised by what happened then.
No, I wasn't. And matter of fact, at nationaljournal.com, I wrote about noon on Friday after Mitch McConnell said, that morning, Democrats were spending a lot of time pounding Republicans on Title X and trying to cut women's funding and all that. And that just struck me as a classic example of one political party finding one thing in a situation like this that they've defended to show everyone what they got out of the deal. A face-saving thing to say, look, yes, we had to take a lot of concessions and make a lot of concessions over here, but on this one issue, we stood strong and we held firm. I said, okay, that's their face-saving gesture. And then Mitch McConnell said, look, we're going to work this out in a few hours. And then John Boehner did not rise to any of these attacks coming from Democrats about taking things away from women, which is a significant political charge. It's important with independence. And when Boehner and no one else in the Republican Party rose to that aggressively, I said, okay, the deal's over. One side's face-saving, the other side's just biding its time, and we'll get this done right before the end. So nationaljournal.com, under my byline, was at a bit of a precarious place for a few hours, but it turned out exactly the way it was. I figured if I said it here, I'd write it at National Journal as well.
Hey, he got a call from upstairs going, Major.
Yeah, Fournier, my boss, Ron Fournier, is like, we're kind of out there, dude. You better be right.
You're kind of hanging.
And I said, well, the great thing, Ron, with the lower standards of internet journalism, you can be out there. It's all right.
It wasn't in the print version. It's just online.
It wasn't in the magazine, Ron. It's just on the web.
Yeah. Major, you've been around
That's
these
a joke, Ron. I'm not talking about lower. I don't really mean lower standards.
You've been around these guys for a long time.
Yeah.
You know this town, and you know the people and the players, and I think you accurately hit it. Now what? You've got the Republican committee that's looking at this issue. You've got the president's going to come out with his plan. How does all this play out now with Ryan and Jim Jordan and Obama and all these folks who now want to put their little piece on the table?
Well, it's been a fascinating weekend, and for those who think this idea of going up to the edge of a government shutdown was simply partisan posturing and didn't really accomplish much, look, the town has fundamentally changed. This debate has fundamentally changed from where it was just 2 months ago. The president, when he proposed his budget, and for anyone who understands budgeting and the presidency, it's the most important document you write every year. It's your political document. Explain to the country what you believe we should do and why. Well, the great question for the White House now is, does that budget have any validity anywhere, as a political document or as a policy document? Because that budget said no cuts from the 2010 budget. Well, on Friday, the president was congratulating himself and everyone else by cutting almost $39 billion from his 2010 budget. Okay, so that part of his budget this year is gone. He also, in that budget, said nothing about entitlement reform. On Wednesday, he's going to give a very big speech about what? Entitlement reform.
Yeah.
So he has a budget up on Capitol Hill that, of course, had no traction in the House Republican, in the House with the Republican majority, but you would have thought it would have had some strength and political viability in the Senate run by Democrats. It clearly does not anymore. Yeah. We're in a completely different place. So this confrontation, though it averted a shutdown and went on for several weeks, has moved the ball in a different direction, and that direction is more toward Republicans than when it started. Now, are Republicans going to get everything they want? Of course not. But Paul Ryan's budget is going to be on the House floor Friday, and several House Republican leadership aides told me over the weekend it will get more votes than the deal CR vote did Friday night, meaning there were 24 Republicans who bolted then. I would say that the number who do not vote for the Ryan budget resolution will probably be 10 or fewer, which means this is going to be the House Republican position. completely reshaping Medicare, turning Medicaid into a block grant, cutting taxes, and going straight on to the White House with significant entitlement reform, lower taxes, and that's going to be the Republican opening bid. And the president's going to have to respond, and then we'll sort it all out.
Do you think any Democrats would actually vote for that bill?
The Ryan budget?
Yeah,
no. I can't see that. Because when you get into the realm of transforming Medicare, which has always been fee-for-service, to premium support, which is what federal employees have, that is a dramatic change in policy. And the only way Democrats will go there is if Republicans do what the president's going to call for on Wednesday, which is higher taxes on the wealthy. And if the Republicans simply won't go there, there will be a forever impasse on that issue.
But what's the timeline for the 2012 budget? Because we just saw we don't really have to have a timeline for
clearly.
budgets.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in theory, and the way this is supposed to work, the fiscal year ends on September 31st.
Right.
So all the appropriations bills have to be passed. Now, Hal Rogers said late Friday night, we will pass every single of our 13 appropriations bills under open rules before the August recess. Well, that's going to give the Senate a little bit of time to work on it, but not much. And a Senate that is incapable right now of getting 60 votes for just about anything are going to have a hard time putting those appropriations bills across.
Okay, so we essentially have until September before we
revisit this shutdown scenario.
But
again.
then on the debt ceiling, and the Republicans are trying to get concessions on the debt ceiling.
Yes.
How does that work? What are they getting concessions for?
Well, what I think Republicans are going to talk about on the debt ceiling is a couple of things. One, process reform. Now, that sounds very wonky and uninteresting, but I've covered budgets off and on in Washington since 1990, and I don't understand why a government as large as ours spends only 1 year deciding what its budget is. You need 2 years to sort all this out. You need 2 years for the money and 2 years for the oversight to see how the money is being spent. A 1 year cycle is just too short, and we're learning this over and over and over again. The political system can't handle 13 appropriations bills, though it should be able to. It just simply can't in a 1 year process. So they're going to talk about things like that, building into budget laws mechanisms that put the onus on increasing spending and incentivize decreasing spending. You can do that with all sorts of means. And I think Republicans are going to push for that in the context of the debt ceiling. You're not going to get the Ryan budget passed because that's just a non-starter with the president. It's too big as far as reforms and too philosophically different from where the president and most Senate Democrats are. So I think you're going to see process reforms driving the debt ceiling debate when we have it. Tim Geithner told the leadership last week it'll be mid-May. I'm told by senior Republican and Democratic figures on Capitol Hill it will not be until June and could possibly lay over until July.
So does the Bowles-Simpson plan come into play here, where you've got the debt commission that the president basically just chucked? Does that now step up and fill in a lot of the comfort gaps that are there?
Well, you have this gang of six, 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats